Hi, welcome to Inspiring You with Sylvia Yu. I'm honored to have my guest today, Joy Fox. She is a personal inspiration to me. She's 90 years old and a dynamo, and she's the epitome of age is just a number. I just really love her wisdom. I just really enjoy talking with her. She's just so full of life. And here's a little bit about Joy Fox, her background. She is the founder of CanSPEP, the Canadian Society of Professional Event Planners, at a time when there were hardly any women in her industry, and she'll tell us more about that. She has worked with Fortune 500 companies as a trainer, consultant, and meeting planner. She's also a member of the Advisory Council for the leading travel resource for solo women travelers over 50. And this platform has served solo women travelers for over 30 years. She's also recorded several music CDs. She's quite the singer. So, Joy, welcome. And can you share a little bit about the pioneering work you've done over the years?
Oh, that word pioneer. I don't see myself as a pioneer at all. Just, leaving school at 16 and a half directly to work to make money. And that's what it's been, is just, from one job to the other and making a little bit more money until eventually we emigrated. We'd saved enough money by that time to have a better life. But I don't see myself as a pioneer. I was just doing the best to make life a little bit better all the time and, improving my personal life and my mum's as well. So whatever I did, I don't think I was a pioneer of any sort. I was just doing what I had to do at that time to make life a little bit more comfortable for us.
So, can you share a little bit about the entrepreneurial work you were doing when you were often the only woman in the room?
I don't know whether I was the only woman in the room. How I started to be an entrepreneur was after I'd emigrated to Canada and got jobs basically in Ontario once we moved there. I wanted to be more in control of my future, and I was lucky, here and there, to have a good boss who would let me develop to the extent that I wanted to, but bosses were not like that and would not give you enough work to do. So eventually I quit and decided to start my own company. I'd already been playing around with protocol and etiquette and had been to Washington and taken all of their certification courses. So I had that under my belt, and I'd been involved volunteering for the big US $1 million meeting planning organization. So I'd volunteered with them for a few years and had got certification in meeting management. I put the two together and I went and took business management training and wrote a project plan and got a little award for that. And I'd also got an award from the meeting industry as Planner of the Year for 1995.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
thank you. And I also got a little award for my business plan. They thought it was a great idea I had, of consulting in protocol and etiquette, because at that time, business was moving across the borders more than they had in the past, and there was a need for some training up front before they, went to other countries to take their meetings. And you need to know how to deal with people, etc. So, and that's basically how I got to be an entrepreneur. But at the same time, while I was volunteering for this huge organization in the States, I prefer not to mention the name if you don't mind, and I was dealing with independent meeting planners, which is what I was setting myself up as, from all over the world. And the atmosphere in the room was always so electric. Coming back to Canada, I'm thinking, well, we're talking a lot about US business, and for us, it's not US business, it's Canadian. And there wasn't any organization in Canada at that time. So I just put a little feeler out and said, would anybody like to get together and, talk about the issues? I knew maybe half a dozen women who were either thinking of planning or were already in it. I got quite a few answers, and by the second meeting, everybody said, well, we want an association. I just thought we were going to talk about things where we could help each other. If you get a big contract, you can draw on somebody to help with it. That was my original plan, but the people in the room had different idea of what they wanted. They wanted to do this regularly and have a proper organization for independent meeting planners in Canada. That's really how CanSPAP started. It was called the Canadian Association of Independent Meeting Planners originally, but that wasn't a very good acronym. And eventually it was changed to IMPAC. But I think that there was another company with the name Impact. So they
Mm,
changed it to CanSPAP a few years ago, and that's worked very well. We're coming up to 30 years now. I think it was a smart move at that time, to do it.
right. You pioneered it because was
Well,
there another
well, I did.
organization like it?
I did, yeah. I opened my mouth and spoke up where other people didn't. I think other people wanted to do it, and somebody would
Uh,
have if I hadn't. I
yes.
know that, you know.
Yes. And where did that come from? That initiative, that drive?
Well, I think I probably got it from my mum because, when growing up, you had to be very resilient and deal with a lot of bad times. And I just grew up with a determination that I was never going to be poor again. I was never going to be scruffy or dirty. And that was my mantra inside. Whatever happens in the future, you're never going to be poor again. Kept getting better jobs and earning more money to make sure that I was never poor again. And I never have
Mm.
been. So, that determination. And I think it just stuck inside of me. I watched what my mum did and so many hardships she had. And I thought, God, she must have been strong. But she obviously passed something along to me that I wasn't aware of at that particular time. So,
Wow. Can you unpack that? The experiences of being poor? Do you want to share a little bit about that? And then it lit a fire under your feet. So do you think that's also resilient? So yeah, can you tell us more about
well,
that?
I think it was more about determination on my part to never let myself be in the position that my mother was in. But I've been resilient in several areas, prior to that, during marriage, etc. And, with the kids and stuff like that, you have to sometimes just roll with the punches and see what happens. But no, I think my mom was a very, very strong woman and she passed along some of that strength to me. But on the other hand, I was a mouse, really. I didn't speak up for a long time. I was a shy kid, and the only time I was comfortable was when I was singing. And Mum
Uh-huh.
knew that I could carry a tune, so she encouraged me to sing every day. And when she got a piano, we sang together, and the boys
Oh,
played instruments. So we had a little musical group going during the war in the house. The neighbors would come and pop their heads in the window and watch. So it was like our first audience. So it was her
lovely.
who pushed me into music. But I'm so
Mm,
glad she did because I've been singing all my life. And, apart from right up until September, I was singing. And I still go to
mm,
concerts, and sing along. So still singing.
right.
Yeah.
So lovely. And you'll have to
Mm.
sing for us sometime. Do you want to sing a bar now?
No.
So, speaking of challenges, is there another challenge in your life that really shaped you and gave you the determination to succeed?
Yes, it is. There's been several, but I guess, after emigration and realizing that Mum was not happy in Canada, that was the first challenge, to raise a little money to make sure that she got back home to her son, the other son that stayed home. So that was the first challenge. But Mike and I had met my husband by then. We paid for her, her fare back and got her settled again. So then we moved around. We moved to Ontario fairly quickly because, while I was very happy in my work in Vancouver, it was sort of a women's world at that time. And, being in the secretarial line, there was lots of jobs and I was getting well paid. So, but Mike wasn't too happy because there was nowhere to progress to. He was a metallurgist and worked in stainless steel primarily. So we
Mm,
moved to Ontario, took a wonderful trip through the States, and he had introduced me to camping in nature and introduced me to parks and waterfalls and all sorts of beautiful, beautiful places in nature, mountains, and which I had never really thought about because there's lots of lovely areas in England, but coming to Canada is totally different. And he took
mm.
me into the woods, and I got chased by bears one time in Yellowstone Park, and little things like that happened. But it was a good time. We did a lot of traveling, and then traveled across the states to Ontario and started work there. We both got a good job, senior metallurgist, with Atlas Steels. And the first challenge I had, he hadn't told his mother that we'd got married, and he was a Catholic family, and I was a Protestant, and we went to England in 1963 to stay with his parents, and we picked up my mum on the way and took her. And when I got there, my mother-in-law said, "Well, you're not sleeping together because you're not married." And I said, "What? We got married in a United Church. That's not the same. You're not married. You're living in sin. You're sleeping with me. He's sleeping with his father." So I didn't think too much of that, but I thought, well, it's Christmas. I'm not going to make a fuss. I was more submissive in those days. I would have said a swear word or two in these days, but not then. So, but we had a little bit of sweet revenge because the whole family went to mass on Sunday and Mike and I didn't. So we went to my mother-in-law's bed and slept for a while, and I got pregnant from there. So she never knew that we had that sweet revenge. I got pregnant in her bed on our holiday when she wouldn't let us sleep together. So that's...
Oh, wow. Even after you were married, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't let you.
She never,
Wow.
ever recognized our marriage, ever.
Can you just describe that era and the mindset? Because
Well,
that's so unfathomable for us today, right?
yes, it is. It was unfathomable for me because, I was brought up to go to church on Sundays, and when I was 14, I said, "Mum, I'm not going anymore." She said, "It's all right, that's your decision." And Mike had made the same decision in his family. But I didn't know anything about Catholicism, but there was a lot of very strict rules for Catholics, and people who like to follow rules were good with that. But I didn't know what those rules were, I mean, it was such a separate... We were only associated with Anglicans where I was, so there was no way for me to get to know the Catholic society as it was. If I'd stayed with Luigi in Italy, I would have faced the same thing because they were all Catholics too, so that would not have worked. But
Tell me
we
about
found...
Luigi.
Well, Luigi was that happened in 1950. I was engaged to be married, and my boyfriend had got a job in London. He went to a Christmas party and fell in love with somebody else, and he wanted his beautiful diamond ring back. And I said, eventually, I didn't say anything at first, but eventually I said, "No, I'm a little bit angry about this now, so I'm gonna sell it and maybe go somewhere." My brother had been to Italy, and he said how wonderful it was, and I said, "I'll go to Italy." So that's what I did. I sold the ring, and I went to Italy and met Luigi. I met him the first day in a dance. I was the only blonde in the room, and they all lined up around the hall to dance with me. So it was quite wonderful. And when I came
Hmm.
back, I was almost in love with him. And I don't know, he was just such a kind and gentle man. And he took me all around the Riviera on those 2 weeks, and we had a wonderful
Mm.
time. And, places like Milano and Genoa and Turin, Santa Margherita, Portofino, Zoelli, come on.
Sounds magical.
Yeah, Sestri Leventi. It was wonderful. On the back of his scooter, we weaved our way down the roads. I had to
Ah,
see all the churches, of course, but I couldn't go in because I didn't have a scarf for my head, so I wasn't dressed
um,
appropriately. It was
right.
a wonderful time, and I came back a different person. So that was the first thing that changed my life, was going to Italy and healing a broken heart and coming back full of confidence and thinking, "I did that. I actually did that. I got there on my own."
Mm.
And I came back and I thought, you can do anything. And my mum would always say, "You can do whatever you set your mind to. You'll be good at it." And I didn't know what that was going to be at that time, but that was when I got the travel bug. And
Right.
yeah, and Luigi came the following year. He sent me the gorgeous painting that I shared with you that was taken when I was 21, and it was just magical getting that. And I've got a telegram that he sent me and say, "I think you strongly," and it's wonderful, pidgin English. So, and beautiful black and white photographs he sent of the whole holiday. So it was
Lovely.
it was a very wonderful experience and a beautiful romance. It really was.
Mm.
But we were saving up to go to Canada, so it wasn't going to work. And I couldn't let my mum down because I'd been working 3 jobs to pay for her to go as well. And I just did not want to let her down. So I said to Luigi, "Look, you saw your father shot in the garden. And I've had a bad time during the war as well. I can't marry you. I know that you want to have children with me, and I feel the same way, but we're going to Canada. You can come to Canada with us if you want, but that wasn't going to work. You
Uh,
know, his mum had had her troubles, so he was going to stay with his mum and his sibling at that time. And I thought, well, yeah, he's a lovely boy, he's standing by his mum, but he really was a lovely person. And I've often wondered, what if we got married?
Really, when you think back,
I
is
think
he the
that.
love your first love?
Well, I did fall in love with him. I mean, I was in love with John when we were engaged, but I don't know, he broke my heart. So, and this guy mended it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. So you traveled to Italy by yourself. Do
Hmm.
you think that was the genesis of your support for journey women and solo women travelers? And you've traveled by yourself all
Yeah.
over. Yeah,
I, I've
share more
I've
about
done
that.
I've done a lot of solo traveling, and I followed Evelyn Hammond. I followed her newsletter and followed her on her travels, and I was doing a certain amount of travel myself whenever I could. You know, during our marriage, Mike was traveling all the time in all parts of the world. He went all around the world with his job. And I would, get a babysitter for the kids and go off and, do a riding retreat or a knitting retreat or, a river cruise or something. So I did things like that. And when we moved to Victoria, when we were in Ontario, we were always going south, so to Europe. But when we moved to Ontario, I wanted to go a little further, and I belonged to a group called 5W, Men Welcome Women Worldwide, it's called. And you stay with a member, for 2 or 3 days and then move on. So I went to Australia and New Zealand with just staying with members. And then I rented a car and, drove around New Zealand too. I went to the Cook Islands and
Ah,
did all that. And that was a big trip. That was 6 weeks. And Mike had already been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So I knew that in the future, any of my trips had to be shorter. So,
yes.
I did walking trips in England and, I've been to several cruises on my own and, various spots in Europe. Italy and France and Scandinavia, and I have not been to Portugal yet, but it's on my list. So, yeah, I did quite a bit
Yeah.
over the years.
So
Plus, while I was in conference business, I was going to international conferences as well, all over the States as well as Europe.
why is it important to have a supportive platform for solo women travelers? How is that beneficial?
Well, in a way, it can be not very beneficial because often they charge you a single supplement. When you go on a cruise, for instance, unless you can pick up a good deal where they are not charging a single supplement or charging maybe 25% of it, you are charged two people when you're in a cabin because years
Oh.
ago, people always traveling with couples, okay? There were couples. So most of the accommodation is for two people. I mean, women are widowed often quite early. And there's a lot of very enterprising women, very inspiring women, who are doing massive things around the world. I mean, they go by foot around the world. I can't quite, understand how they can do that. I think there would be things I would be afraid of, safety issues. But the single supplement is the biggest thing against solo travel because we're always paying more. Now,
I had no idea.
fortunately, Johnny Warren has been looking into the solo travel market because now that the solo travel market is so big, people are sitting up and taking notice. It's $1 billion, not organization, but product. All of us going on our own. We want to be on our own. We want our own room. We don't want to be, have to share with a stranger, which often happens. And it did happen a lot in the early days when I've been to England many times. I've just stayed with a friend when I wanted to stay or just found a B&B somewhere. It's just the biggest thing against, for solo travelers is a single
Right.
supplement, but it's getting better. There's quite a
Good.
few organizations specifically for solo travelers, and their Journey Woman has a big database of companies that, offer special trips for solo travelers
Oh,
with
that's
no single
excellent.
supplement. And, that's happening now. And
Yes,
my last trip to Iceland, I got a good discount on the single supplement portion of it. So I
that's
was
good
quite
to
happy
know.
about that. Yes,
Good.
I did.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
journeywoman.com. And
Journeywoman.com.
yes, yes. So, as a woman in leadership roles over the years, have you encountered barriers? And if so, how did you overcome them, Joy?
Barriers. I didn't really find that I had any barriers when I was going up through the ranks. I had some pushback when I founded Casbah from the big
Ah,
organization. Oh yeah, I was called out in public as a traitor, but I didn't feel I was a traitor because I was starting a Canadian business for Canadians. So that didn't make me a traitor. I dealt with in the past with saying I'm doing something for my country, you know, don't call me a traitor. And it was a Canadian who was saying it, which really hurt
oh,
quite a bit.
mm,
And I was called out a couple of times at special events as, breaking away from the group. And I thought, it's obviously time for me to get out of this organization. And I was told by a member that I wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. They wouldn't use me anymore because of the fact that I'd started an association. They had a
oh,
special interest
wow.
group for independence, but it didn't focus on specifically on Canadian business, which
Uh-huh.
is why I did it. But that was a big barrier. But aside from that, I haven't really had great barriers. While I was working, there was a lot of harassment from the senior male members, and that was the reason I got out.
Ah,
I just couldn't put up with that.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. What about some three three or four milestones that have shaped you over the years?
Well, I think the one that shaped me the most was in it was in 1970, and I was 7 months pregnant with my third baby. I'd had one in Quebec, one in England, and I was in Fort Erie this time, and it had been a very difficult pregnancy. He was laying on the sciatic nerve, so I kept fainting, and so
Oh,
I know I'd been a pain throughout the pregnancy.
yes.
But my husband came home from work and said he had a separation agreement and he wanted to be on his own for a while. I thought at the time he was having a mental problem, the mental health
Yes.
issue here. I didn't know. He never said. And I said, what are your plans? I was absolutely heartbroken because I was in love with him. And he said, I want you to go to England and be with your mother. So I said, with the children? What is your plan exactly? He said,
Mm,
no, no. He said, I really need to be on my own for a while. Now, I
mm,
know he'd had a trauma from his childhood, which surfaced once in a while. So I did go to England and I took the children on a flight when the baby was 3 months old. Bought a house and bought a house on the phone. It was disgustingly filthy, but I thought to myself, okay, it's you and the kids now. You're going to do what you got to do to make life, bearable. So I did fix the house up with the help of a girlfriend. She had a little mini car and we strapped everything to the roof. We went to secondhand places, lawn sales, and we'd strap a bed to the roof, this little mini, and get it home, or maybe an oak desk or whatever. And I furnished the house that way. She got me a deal on paint. I painted every room, made every room absolutely beautiful. I went to night school and learned simple carpentry. I got the two girls into dancing classes, which they loved. And for my music appreciation, I joined a stomp club. Now, stomp is a form of dance. I mean, it really is stomping, but it's double time rock and roll, if you can imagine that. Okay.
I
It was
guess that sounds amazing and a stress release, right?
well, the best dancer I ever had was from Turkey, and I could not
Mm.
believe I got through that dance afterwards. I said, "Holy cow, now that was a dance!" So after I'd fixed the house up, I bought a car, and eventually I got a job in real estate, and I just basically had a pretty good time there. But what I did find out was that I was finally independent. And I
Mm.
knew I wasn't going to take any more crap from anybody. That was it. I thought, if I can do this and survive, and it was 3 years actually, and then Mike came around and he said, I really miss you and the kids. Are you going to come back? And I said, yeah, I'll think about it. I said, I was thinking about divorcing you actually, but I said, I actually do still love you. And I don't know what your
Mm.
problem was, but the kids have really missed you. We've got one child with ADHD. She needs her dad. She was daddy's girl. So I came back, and it was a big challenge to readjust, to reopen my marriage and forgive. I had to, otherwise it would have sat
Yeah.
here for the rest of my life. So I did. And he never, before he died, I said, "Are you ever going to tell me what that was about?" And he said, "I don't know what it was about. I was just going through a bad time." And I said, "Okay." Afterwards, I thought maybe there was somebody else, but I'll never know. I'll never know. But in a way, I'm grateful because it made me who I am today. It
Yeah.
showed me exactly what I could do and how I could do it. And there was a strength that I didn't know I had till then, really, and so I decided that, forgiveness is the best way to go and just get on with life. And life was fine after that. We moved around a bit more and, moved west, and then he got Parkinson's, and that was 14 years. And then I had to make the decision that he was going to die tonight, which I don't wish that on anybody. I was his advocate. I visited every day, and they called me this New Year's. Stephen and his wife had just been to see him, and they called me at home and said, "He's had pneumonia for 7 months now," and I knew he wasn't going to get over it. They said, "Now we're going to intubate him." I said, "No, no, you're
Mm,
not going to intubate him." I mean, at this point, he couldn't talk. He
mm.
couldn't. He couldn't communicate except with his eyes. And I said, "No, you're not. I'm coming. Don't you put that in his mouth anymore." So when I got there, they were still fighting with him to get it in his throat. And I said, "Stop it right now. Take it right away." And I said, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "We're told we have to keep them alive." I said, "No, no, no. We've got a DNR.
Uh-huh.
You don't keep this one alive tonight. He's going on his journey." So I called my daughter, who's a nurse practitioner in Ontario, and I said, "Get in touch with the nurses station and tell them what they have to do." And so I let him go that night, and it took
Oh,
several hours. I had knitting, and I sat and knitted and played music and talked to him and told him everything that was on my mind. And I called the kids and put the phone by his ear so they all spoke to him before he left. He died on the 15th, on the 2nd of January, 2015.
and you were together for how many years?
At that point, it was 59 years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and there was good
Mm.
times and there was bad times, but the bad time turned out to be a very good time for me because I found out who I was. I
Yes.
was I was no longer the submissive wife who would have gone back to England because he said so. I would have said, "No, you get out, you go, not me." So, it's just who I am today. But I
Yeah,
wasn't.
you're take no
And
prisoners. You're
I take no
totally take
prisoners.
no
No, I don't.
prisoners personality.
I really, that's so true.
Absolutely. It's so true. Like
I
you are
know.
a
Yeah,
fighter. You're so feisty. It's
yeah.
very difficult to picture you as mousy or submissive. I
Well, I
just
was.
can't
I was such
imagine.
I was such a shy kid. I never spoke up in class when, in school. And it wasn't until I think maybe I was in my 50s and I joined Toastmasters. And no, maybe it was before that. It must be before that because before I went to England, I joined Toastmasters. And when I came back to Canada, I joined again. Having to stand and speak in front of a crowd, it made me realize that that's one thing that people wet their pants over. It just frightens people so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
It's the second most yeah, what people are most afraid of after death.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
public speaking. You're right.
That's right. Yeah. And I would talk to people about public speaking because I became a public speaker. When I took on the role of an entrepreneur to teach people etiquette and protocol, you've got to talk all the time. And
Yes.
some of my clients were children, so I was teaching them proper dining etiquette. And it was
Oh,
it was filmed by, I think, City TV in Toronto.
right.
Yeah, they
Wow.
did a film of the kids, and it was wonderful. I loved it for the kids, I really
Yeah.
did. Because you don't see that these days, manners have changed. It was, maybe it
I'm a
was,
big manners person,
me
Joy.
too,
I think
me
you
too.
need to
Yeah.
revive it and business etiquette as well.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
a believer and a
I
supporter
am, I
of
am a
that.
believer in that too. Yeah.
Yes.
In
And
fact,
Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, in fact, I've told my friends, I've told them that there's probably a book coming, and if I have it before Christmas, we're having a party, but you don't come in jeans, okay? And I don't want any baseball caps. You can wear a long dress or your best outfit, and you can come and you can
Yes.
dine with me, and you can buy a copy of my books.
Excellent.
That's what I'm doing at
Sounds
Christmas.
sounds great. Sounds great. I also resonate with how you transformed, and I was
Yeah.
also very, very, what's the word? Hesitant to speak
Yes,
out.
yes, me too. Yeah.
And so it wasn't until my divorce,
Mm.
then I became more like a
Well,
lioness, more
yeah, that's right.
ferocious,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. There's a freedom
So
to it. Yeah.
there is, there
Yeah.
is.
When you're on your
Yes.
own, I mean, now I've been on my own since 2015, so that's 10 years, nearly 11 years in January. Now I'm managing my house and my garden and my life and my finances and everything.
It's
And
beautiful.
if something needs doing, I'm the one that's got to do it, and I'm okay with all of that. I
Yes.
love being solitary and I love silence, but I also love people. I mean, I got the best of both worlds. I really do.
And you're dynamic. You're recording, or you've recorded 3
Yeah.
CDs,
Well, there's
and
more than 3
that's
actually. I think we
oh,
did
wow.
6 or 7 altogether. I made the
Okay.
first one on my own and they backed me,
Oh.
but they liked the process so much. They said, "Oh, I think we should make a Christmas album." I said, "All of us?" "Yeah, yeah, we're all of us." So that was the start. The first one was mine, Faces of Love, and the second one was Remembering Christmas. And then we thought we'd do another one, which was called Timeless. And then we did another Christmas one. And then when I left, they did a wrap-up CD of all of my favorite songs, which was
Oh,
lovely.
that's
The ones he used to
precious.
sing. Yeah, it was lovely. He was one of the men that inspired me, the keyboardist, Marty Adams. He was part of
Mhm.
a big band scene in Victoria, Doc and the Doo-Wops and, that era.
Wow. Oh, I love
And he
that.
was he was a wonderful pianist. And, he would transpose everything into a key that was suitable for my voice and wonderful that way. And when he died in 2019 after I'd moved up here. We were still in touch and they'd been to see me, he and his wife. And then I heard that he died, suddenly had a heart attack. And,
Oh, yeah.
and so I called his wife and I said, "Are you doing a celebration?" She said, "Yeah, next March." She said, "I want you to sing at it." And I said, "I know
Oh.
exactly what I want to sing." So I picked I Hope You Dance because we'd recorded it and he was doing the backup vocals on the recordings. At the celebration, they took my voice out of the recording and there was a picture of him at the piano and with him singing the backup and I sang the words.
Oh,
Oh, God, talk,
gives me
talk
goosebumps.
about chills. Yeah, I
Wow.
know.
Can you sing 30 seconds of it or more? Can you
Uh,
sing?
Let me see. I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat and always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. And
Oh,
really, it was a song that is sung to a child to say, don't be the way I was. Don't sit back, but step up and speak out. And that was what it's all about.
you have a beautiful voice. You
Thank
have
you,
a
but
beautiful
it's
voice. I
really
just got
faded.
goosebumps. No,
It's
it's
really faded now, but thank you.
wow. And the words are so meaningful.
Oh, the words are beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
If you could give advice to your younger self and for
Yeah.
younger people in general, what would you tell her?
What would I tell them? You gave me 3 things, didn't you?
Yeah. And this is the final question.
All right, yeah. Well, I would say to them, you know, when you're growing up, you want to be like somebody else, but you can't be like anybody else. You can only be yourself, and everybody else is taken. So be your own self, be authentic to who you are. Because it's okay to be different. It's okay not to follow the crowd. Okay, it really is. But kids don't know that, right? They don't.
Mm.
They want to be like everybody else and be a member of the gang. And find out where your passion lies and find a job that matches your passion, because then it won't be like going to work.
Exactly.
I mean, it will be like going to do something you love every day. So
Yes.
I think that's a good thing to do. And also listen to your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, don't do it. And don't be afraid to say no. And look after your health. That's a big one. Take care of yourself. Be good and kind to yourself. And you could be kind to other people. And don't worry
Yes.
about your age. You're gaining wisdom and experience at each stage of aging. And listen to your body. Do what your body tells you can do. And also learn about the rest of the world. Go traveling. Find out about other cultures. You know, learn a little bit of another language, and you'll come back and you'll be a different person, because you'll realize that people in the world are more or less the same as us. Everybody's the same underneath. So, you know, just go and find out about other people and how they live, and you will have a much wider life, a better life for it. You'll be better for it.
Powerful. Yes, exposure to diverse
Yes.
people, experiences transforms us. What's your secret sauce for being so dynamic and having that can-do spirit at 90?
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with just taking no notice of the calendar. It's, you know, so I'm 90, but I don't feel 90. And the thing is, your heart doesn't grow old. Your heart stays young inside. So inside I'm about 50. So I
Mm.
just have to act as if, you know, I'm a lot younger than I am. But I have my own style and I have my own way of doing things, and that's okay. I wear what I want when I want. And so I don't worry about what other people think of me at all. And nobody should, because it's not your business what other people think about you. It's
Yes,
their business. And,
exactly.
you know, if you find out too much, you know, too much negativity about yourself, then it's going to make you feel negative. But so don't worry about what other people think. You do your own thing and be your own self as long as you can, and enjoy every day. Nature's wonderful, gardening, and I really think I've got my own special blue zone here in Parksville. I do,
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
because my life is simple. You
Mhm.
know, it really is. It's
Yeah,
simple. It sounds
yeah.
complicated, but it's not. Now that I am, well, I don't know whether I'm retired or not, but I don't feel retired. You know, there's been so much publicity since I won the Journeywoman Award in 24.
Yes.
Well, and that lovely BBC story, and you know, the same thing when I started the business and formed CanSpap. So much publicity. So I kind of got used to it and just rolled with those punches. And I think I do roll with the punches now.
Beautiful words to live by. Anything else you want to share? I know you've been reflecting on the questions I sent you. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
I don't know, but my whole life is, you know, I'm very happy to be writing this book, because it's like a monkey on your back while you're growing up, because you're poor and scruffy and, you know, got rotten, you know, ugly teeth and big ears, which I still have, but it don't bother me anymore. You know, I was never picked on to be in game at school. Never. I mean, then now it doesn't matter. So, but I wanted to be picked on. I wanted to be on the teams when I was a kid, but now I don't. Now, no, I don't know what the secret to a happy life is, but my life is happy. I'm very content. I'm
Oh,
very,
so
very
glad.
grateful all day.
Y-
I'm grateful every day.
Maybe
And
that's
not,
it.
yeah,
Gratefulness.
gratitude it means a
Yes.
lot. And that's how I get to sleep when I'm laying awake at night. I
Oh,
just, I just say, I am so grateful for this bed, and I'm grateful for my house and my life. And I'm grateful that that I've got nice pajamas to wear. Yeah, and gratitude goes a long way.
that's great. And your
Mm,
book, please tell everyone the name of your book. It's coming out soon in
yes,
December.
that Sylvia is editing, and it's called Finding Joy. My life began when I pawned the ring. And it did.
Excellent. Thank you, Joy. It's
Thank
been
you.
a true joy having you here. And I do love talking with you. I could speak with you for hours. So, everyone, please check out Joy's LinkedIn, add her, and look out for her book. It's coming out at the end of the year in December 2025. Thank you so very
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for having me, Sylvia. It's a great pleasure,
It's been an honor.
always. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you. For
thank
me
you.
too.
And I will stop it.